Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spoil Your Baby podcast. Today I have MJ Renshaw, who sort of a neighbor of mine. We're kind of like in the same part of the world, which is pretty cool. And we got acquainted when my book came out. And I'm so excited. MJ also has a best-selling book about to arrive in the world and is also the founder of the Being Method and has so many insights and incredible offerings for parents. So welcome, MJ. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So let's get started with getting to know you a little bit. Let everyone know a little bit about yourself.
I'm an avid rock collector. It's 11:11 right now on my clock here. Yeah, I'm a mom. I have 2 young kids. I am the founder of the Being Method and current CEO of the Being Method, which is just a breathwork kind of exploration. We love the intersection of science and spirituality. I've always geeked out on that world, like what is the pineal gland and what are the hormones? And my background is a BA in philosophy, which I dropped out of right before I was going to graduate, and then a post-grad in osteopathy, which I also dropped out of right before I was about to graduate. You're sensing a theme. And then I was just, I always say I'm born to be an entrepreneur. I love marching to the beat of my own drum. I love doing what I want to do. So that's where I found myself now. And I'm really happy. So that's what we're doing.
I love it. And your program trains people to be breathwork facilitators, right?
Yes. I'm actually currently in school to finish my first program ever to be a somatic therapist.
Incredible.
So excited. But yeah, we do somatic breathwork, very science-based certification. If you want to learn anatomy, physiology, what the heck quantum biology is and how it's a real thing, we love all that. Nerding out there. But you know, when I started doing breathwork just as a tool for myself to heal my own trauma and my own nervous system. And there's so many different techniques in breathwork that can be amazing for people, whether it's just slow breathing for 10 minutes a day, just to get grounded, or, you know, a more sympathetic type of breath work that's a little bit more, you know, stressful, but a hormetic stress that's going to help release emotions stored in your body so that you can process things that happened to you as a child. So it's not as triggering today. Or I'm a really big fan of hypoxia training, which is not breathing at all. So many different types of ways to breathe that are beneficial. And it started out as a healing modality for me. And now we certify people in it in something called somatic breathwork. So it's exciting.
Yeah. I always want to give parents the menus of ways that they can heal themselves, learn to regulate themselves, learn to work with their inner child, work with their inner experience as a baby. And breathwork is always on that list. For sure. So it's
one of my favorite tools.
Yeah, completely. And it's different for people, right? Because it's not maybe the kind of therapy that they might imagine, like the one-on-one talk therapy that they might imagine. We can actually use other therapies like breath work and other somatic therapies, right? To also get towards healing.
Yes. By the way, you guys will hear my kids screeching in the background.
That's common
on brand for the podcast. Yeah, I think, you know, for me, the most beneficial thing I've ever done in my own healing is the cerebral work, like reading the self-help books, working on my mindset, doing the talk therapy, figuring out all the intellectual pieces that I can, but also learning to get into my body. And that could look like dancing. That could look like breath work. That could look like gardening, you know, just things where you're just embodying yourself. I love the research that came out where our mitochondria can store 50 generations of trauma. So a lot of the times, like, we can't intellectualize that. Yeah. That's not something that you can go talk to a therapist about because you don't really have a conscious awareness of what that is. So sometimes I think people can get triggered in things or emotions can come up and we can't really know where it's from. Yeah. And sometimes we can. So I think the best practice is to work on both. I can't see someone having a healthy body without a good mindset.
Beautiful.
But I also can't see someone having a healthy mindset without working on the trauma and emotions stored in their body. Like, I just think that it's just so powerful for both to work together.
Yeah. I love the way that you said that. Like, for so long, the mind and body were cut. Like it was like severed at the neck.
Thanks a lot,
things
Descartes.
happened here. Yes, exactly. I mentioned that Descartes era, right? And it's all, obviously, we're all connected, right? Physically, emotionally, spiritually, it's all connected. So that makes so much sense. And for parents, you know, coming into this spoil your baby movement, you know, all of the work I do, it's triggering of our own experiences as babies and children, how we were treated. And, you know, our kids are often getting things that we never had, and that can bring up a lot for us. And it's also this confrontation that, oh, I have emotions. It's not as easy to dissociate or distract or, you know, do anything, you know, do the things that you used to do, right? So we're confronted with intense emotions of our own, of our kids' emotions, and then all of it together, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of go into this in your book. Will you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I will. Yeah. So the book is called How to Cry. And, you know, it's a little bit of my story and just like the way I was raised, which is very typical. My parents, I'll just say this before I go into it. It's not a moral failing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like we all have these nervous systems that were raised in certain ways. My mom has her nervous system and she was raised in a certain way. And she did the best that she could with what she knew, which was terrible. I'm just kidding. But
both
she didn't, my parents, you know, they just didn't have an understanding that like when a child is crying about something seemingly small, it's real to them.
Yeah.
You know, just different things like we're raising children at a time where we're so lucky to have ChatGPT that can explain to us our children's development. You can put in, my child is X years old. It is doing X thing. Is this developmentally appropriate? Right. And it will tell you, right? And that's wonderful. But so the book is called How to Cry. And basically it goes into all the research that we have now showing that it is very important for human health and connection to each other to be able to have emotional intelligence, to be able to express our emotions, know what our emotions are, share our emotions with someone else, and hold space for someone else's emotions. And that is basically what you're doing 90% of the time as a parent. That is what is so hard, right? It's like, it's like nothing is happening per se, but it feels like an emergency sometimes because there's all these emotions coming up. And like, why is that an emergency? Because I haven't been taught that crying's okay. I still think there's an invisible person behind me that's going to come in and be like, go to your room. You're being a drama queen or whatever I heard growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our parents, it's been,
you know, I love that you said that right from the start, because I think, you know, with this type of parenting that we're all doing, we can get really angry at the parenting that we had. But, you know, both things are true. Our parents were doing everything, they almost always doing their absolute best, what they thought was what was, you know, the best approach to raise us. And we have imprints from it, right? Yes. Probably both positive and negative. And we can still have compassion for them because they also went through their own parenting. You know, it doesn't start with you, right? That,
yes. And it doesn't end with you either. Great.
Yes.
I hope that my daughter's on a podcast in 25 years and she says, my mom messed up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I get to have that chance to repair and be a better person, be a better grandmother, maybe if they choose to have children. Like I really do firmly believe that if we are in the seat right now where we are thinking about parenting differently and better, that your parents probably did something, even if you don't understand it or it was minuscule. But if I look at the way my grandmother raised my mom raised me differently because that's what she thought was better. And I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. And sometimes so much beauty and love grows from pain, comes from pain.
Yeah. And I know I'm messing up parenting by trying to overparent what I thought my mom underparented, right? Like we kind of swing hard the other direction. I can be a little bit helicoptery, like, and my husband calls me out on it lovingly, but it's just, you know, you just do the best you can. And it goes back to, it's not a moral failing. We have nervous systems. And if you find yourself, you know, I saw a woman on TikTok talking about how she was driving her kids and she was clenching her jaw so tight that one of her teeth broke.
Oh my goodness.
And I think every mom can relate to that tension in your body while you're trying to hold space for all of these different things. And if I always had this, when my daughter was born, this belief that like there's the perfect mom out there. And right now, she never gets triggered. She always speaks to her children in a sweet voice, and she's constantly gardening or cooking and baking in my mind, and that person physiologically doesn't exist. No. The actual good mom out there is the mom who's getting triggered as frick and then being like, oh, I'm triggered now. What are my tools? How can I come back to center? How can I show my children how to move through something? I narrate out to my kids. I say like, oh, I'm feeling a lot of tension. I'm feeling frustrated. Let's go sit down in front of the fire and let's do some tapping or breath work. And they just come with me. And then they learn, oh, when I start to feel like these are the things that I can do, rather than being like, oh, me, I'm absolutely perfect. I've never felt upset in my life. Like, not true.
Yeah. But for so many parenting experts, people think, if we're teaching about parenting tools and information that, somehow we're perfect, but absolutely not. I was speaking to a mom this morning who's going, she's starting some therapy, different therapies. And she's like, I just don't want to do what my parents did anymore. And I'm like, we're all going to do that, right? Those behaviors, those voices, they're going to come out, and we can learn how to take care of ourselves, and we can learn the repair, right? We got to expect it all to be happening, for sure.
I love that you said that. I think one of the shocking things about parenting for me was that those things were those things that my parents did to me, said to me, did to me, were the first things that came to my mind when I felt triggered, even though they're the last things that I would ever want to do or say.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is exactly how it works. It was imprinted in my nervous system. So anything that you can do to give you space between that reaction and then carrying it outside of your brain is amazing. Like you're going to have thoughts where you're like, I kind of want to throw my kid out the window.
Yep.
I have not met a parent who hasn't had that feeling. It's a horrible feeling. But I haven't met a parent who's actually done it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think like just working on ways where you can just create space, like thinking that thought doesn't mean you want to actually do it, and doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Thinking that thought just means that you are outside of your window of tolerance, which means that you've just become dysregulated. That's all it means. It means that you're a human with a nervous system. That's it. And there's so many ways out there to just create space between the emotion coming up, which is totally fine. You can feel frustrated. You can feel angry. I say this in my house at least 3 or 4 times a day. I have 2 toddlers who are close in age. You can feel frustrated, but you can't hit. You can feel frustrated, but you can't yell,
Yeah.
And it truly is reparenting.
Completely. So tell us a bit more about reparenting. I know you mentioned that's also in your book quite a bit, right? I think the word's around everywhere. And people are
I'm not a reparenting expert. It's so hard to write a book about learning to feel your emotions without going into why are we so uncomfortable with this?
Yeah.
I did a lot of research into the history. It's definitely not just like, oh, our parents are boomers kind of thing. This actually stems back to like Egypt, where when there was a funeral, they would hire something called a moirologist, I think I might be getting the name wrong. I'm a mom and I breastfeed. Sorry, guys. I just sometimes make up words. But
we got Google. We can do that.
Basically, at a funeral, they would hire someone else to cry for them.
Wow.
And this was a big practice for a really, really long time. And what this, I think, ingrained, and like Greeks did it, Romans did it, like a lot of different civilizations did it in the Western world, right? And this created a culture in the Western world of crying is for weak people. It's for people of lesser status. It's for people who are, too out of control. And then like it seeps into like the patriarchy and misogyny, right? Like why are women never voted in? Yeah. Oh, we're too emotional. You know what I mean? But somehow all those politicians have forgotten that anger is an emotion.
Yes.
Like, hello.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I just kind of look back to like, why do we have these beliefs that feeling emotions is bad or makes you weak, and how can we, and like looking at the actual research of showing, one of the things that was really eye opening to me was looking at what are the top causes of death of people. And for 9 out of 10 of them, they can be traced back to emotional suppression.
Wow.
Heart attack, cancer, all of these diseases that are very common for people can be traced back to emotional suppression. Yeah. And then the ones that aren't are accidents and accidental death, including overdose, which is extremely high. I would even say that if we're looking at addiction, probably a coping mechanism due to emotional suppression, due to trauma in the past. I think it'd be really hard to argue that. Yeah. So, we know that 75 to 95% of doctors' visits are due to stress. Stress can be caused from not processing your trauma or emotions. Like, I know I'm making really sweeping statements here, but I do firmly believe from the amount of books I've read and studies I've read that like there is only good that can come from learning how to release emotions that you've stored.
Yeah. And it's
we don't
scary,
have a culture
right? It's scary for
is,
people.
It's also not.
We're like so buttoned up, right? I feel like anytime in my real life, when I speak to people online, anytime sadness comes up and there's any type of crying, immediate apology. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What? And I'm always like, no apologies. Just be here right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But we're so used to people not being able to hold space.
Yeah, that's right.
Or that feeling like if I cry or show emotion, I'm going to be I'm going to be a burden on this person.
Yes.
I'm too much.
Or
I'm too
weak.
sensitive. I'm too weak. I'm a drama queen. Like all the things like almost every woman I know has been shamed and berated for crying.
Yes. Yes.
And, and this is leading to like, I would say an epidemic of things like autoimmune diseases. Like we now have the studies of MS and emotional suppression or becoming a people pleaser or not being able to say no. I mean, a lot of these things obviously aren't just emotional suppression, but it plays a big part.
Yeah. And they're all things that are formed in our very early life, right? There are all these patterns that are formed, for a lot of people as babies and for others throughout childhood. Yeah. I would say for many of us, right?
Yeah. It's not every time I see someone talk about online that you are spoiling a baby by being their safe space, by holding their heart through something that they're incapable of. They're incapable of regulating their own nervous system and emotions. I can just see like, oh, wow, we are forming these traumas that lead to every bad thing in the world.
Yeah.
Every bad thing.
It. And while we are mothers of babies and fathers too, we have this amazing neuroplasticity, right? So I feel like reading your book, accessing a lot of these things you're talking about, learning to feel, learning to not suppress our emotions, to express ourselves, to have awareness, understand our nervous system states, we can accelerate that growth so much in those years. I would never want to tell moms and dads like, oh, you have to do something else. It's like you have a lot to do, but showing up for our babies and their emotions is breaking the cycle of a lot of this too. So it is quite important to have at least a rudimentary amount of, change during that time, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I challenged myself last week to only do active listening with my daughter, who's 3. And I challenged my husband too. And we would talk every night about how hard that was.
Yeah.
When she would come to us saying something like, I don't like my hair. Your gut reaction is to be like, I love your hair. Your hair is perfect. Yes. But to her, that's shutting it down, her emotion. So it's like, it doesn't take extra sometimes. Sometimes it just takes a pause, like being like, I don't want my kid to feel this way, so I'm going to fix it right now.
Yes.
And sometimes I just learned so much about her in that week where I was like, well, why do you feel that way? And so many of the things I was projecting, she came to me and said, oh, my tummy's too big. I immediately started crying because I have so much trauma of body shame and, just, I don't want my daughter to have that at all. Pulled myself together and was like, well, why do you feel that way? And she's like, because I'm having a baby. And I was like, oh my God, we're just playing. But it's just like, I could have just dove in to be like, oh no, it's not, you're not, blah, 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 and like put my own stuff on her. So I'm only sharing because I don't sit down and do an hour of breath work every day. I'm a breathwork person. I don't. Yeah. I practice EFT tapping because I can do that with my kids in the 5 minutes before I go to work, but one thing that's really helpful is just, can I practice being present while they're having their emotions, whatever those may be, or their thoughts. And that has not taken extra time. It's just taken a pivot to turning towards that discomfort that comes up when those emotions come up. Yeah. And it's just, you don't have to be perfect. You're going to mess up because this is new to all of us, but just noticing like, oh, my kid just said something to me and now I want to pick up my phone, or my kid just said something to me and now I want to dismiss what they say. Just being like, can I turn towards that discomfort and just be here?
Yeah. And that's heavy. It's a heavy lifting, heavy lifting for a lot of us, right? Like that is a very tough thing to do. And it's hard because of our experience, but it's also hard because we're reshaping ourselves so much in those moments. We're rewiring ourselves, which is so powerful.
Yeah. And I'll plug breathwork again because it's one of the natural ways to increase BDNF, which is going to help, which is a protein that's going to help you rewire your brain. Yeah. So there's a reason why every major religion or culture has practiced breathwork.
Yes. I love it. I love it so much. So we'll stay tuned for, what's the title again of your book?
How to Cry.
How to Cry. I love it. I love it. Last question before we sign off. What is something that you would like all parents of babies to know? What's your top? It could be one and one, but whatever comes to mind.
If you're listening to this, you're a good mom or dad.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you really are.
Yeah.
I think like I'm out there. I think that our babies choose us. And I think they choose it knowingly, knowing when we're going to mess up and knowing our imperfections and knowing that we're going to listen to podcasts like this and try. And it's, just that's all you need to know.
I love it. I love it. And it feels so simple to tell a mom or dad, but it's so powerful. So also, if you're listening, text all the moms and dads and pass it on.
Yeah, it really does make me cry when my friends text that to me.
Yes, I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here, MJ. Where can people connect with you?
Instagram is the best place. We're Being Method Breathwork. DMs are always open. Just come and hang out.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here, and we'll connect again soon.
Thanks for having me, Greer.